So gister, Felicity, en jy was nou nie hier nie. Maar we were talking about toll gates and who owns these toll gates and where does the money go. Numbers were thrown around of how much money gets taken on a daily basis at one toll gate.
Okay.
And we were looking specifically at where's that Machado Dorp, which is apparently the most expensive one in the country. So then we looked at who the roads, who runs the concessions, and it's TRAC, it's Bakwena, it's Tolcon, and then they collect the toll on a tender contract for Sunrail. But the question now is, how much do they make and where does the money go?
Yeah.
So obviously it goes to Sunrail. It should. Well, this big section should go to Sunrail. And then where does it go from there? Because now we're stuck with things like e-toll. So the guys from TRAC said we would like to have an opportunity to say something. And the CEO, Alex van Niekerk, is on the line this afternoon. Hello, Alex.
Good afternoon. Middag, Riaan.
Goeiemiddag, Alex. Hoorie, was julle ouens kwaad gister?
Man, ek dink in terme van wat gesê is, stem ons nie saam met wat gister gesê is, dat ek het maar niks verstel.
Okay. Sê gou vir my waarmee het julle nie saamgestem nie, dan sorteer ons dit uit.
Ja. Nee, ek dink het is belangrik om te verstaan die posisie van die concessions, en dit geld vir alle concessions. Dit is public-private partnerships, and it's taking place to implement all kinds of infrastructure in South Africa, and the private sector basically takes up the risk to come up with the fund. So this concession, the history of this concession, it goes back to 1996, where the Mozambique and South African presidents agreed to upgrade the N4 Maputo development corridor, and with the intention to develop trade along the route.
Yeah.
So it was a concession, it went through a tender process, and at that stage, the toll tariffs and everything has been determined, and that's fixed. It only increased with CPI on an annual basis.
Yeah. So it's not about, to interrupt you, Alex, sorry, I just want to ask, just as a member of the public, let's forget radio broadcaster, but as a member of the public, paying toll, do I have the right to ask, where does my toll money go?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a valid question, and I would really like to explain it. Firstly, if you look at a concession and the initial upgrade to get this route, and some sections in Mozambique there was not even a route in place, there's an initial capital cost, and that capital cost is covered by loans as well as equities from shareholders. So obviously there's a debt, like on a home loan, that needs to be repaid. The second part of it is the continuous upgrading of the route. On this route, since 1997 or 1998, about 16 billion rand has been spent on the initial upgrades and ongoing upgrades on the route. That is expressed now in today's money. And then currently there are contracts to the value of about 1.4 billion ongoing on the route, and another 1.2 billion earmarked to go out on tender this year. So the money is spent on this route. It's not going anywhere else. It's ring-fenced to be spent on the route itself. Routine road maintenance cost is quite high. We provide also route patrol services. We've assisted over 120,000 people over the years since 2011. So there's direct expenses, but it goes back into the route, and it goes to the proper maintenance of the road, and then upgrading it according to the requirements of the contract.
All right. So these numbers that was thrown around on social media saying that one toll gate rakes in millions, and they're talking specifically about the Machado Dorp one, saying if you do the maths, 1,800 rands per cars per hour, or 1,800 cars per hour. Does that make sense? 1,800 cars per hour at that gate?
I think the maths is maybe a bit overestimated. Obviously at Machado, we don't have that high volumes of vehicles, but you may have 1,800 vehicles maybe in a peak hour, but that's not to be extrapolated for the whole day. So overall, at that particular toll plaza, we get about, on average per day, about 9,000 vehicles.
Okay, so percentage-wise of my toll money, break it down for me. How much goes to maintenance? How much is profit? How much goes to Sunrail?
Well, in terms, it's quite difficult to answer that question, but the bulk of that goes back into road upgrading projects, as I've explained, billions of rand going back in that, so that's the bulk of it. There's about, I would say, 20 or 25% going back in debt servicing to repay all the additional loans. In terms of going back to Sunroll, it's not going back to Sunroll. It is a private company that takes the risk to manage this project and to keep it up to the standards as required in the concession contract. So those funds, there are certain instances if it reaches a certain level where there are returns on the investments made, that there's a sharing mechanism, but that money actually on this particular concession flows back into the road. Maintenance, that's about a further 80 million a year that goes into road maintenance and route patrol services.
All right. So just back to the number, how much is being charged at toll gates? Who decides on that? You guys, obviously.
No. That's what I said when we started the conversation, that it's a tender process. It was what's called a public-private partnership. So government asked for bids, and that was already determined in 1998 with the bid that was submitted. So in that bid, it will say, here are the proposals for toll gates, these are the proposals for upgrading the route to a certain standard, and then these are the toll tariffs. So the toll tariffs on all the toll gates on the N4 TRAC route was already determined in 1998. You can then go back to those toll tariffs and then in real terms, meaning only adjusted according to CPI, those toll tariffs is exactly still what it is or what it was back in 1998. So the annual adjustments, and that applies to all toll plazas in South Africa, not only the concessions, are just based on CPI, as is determined by Stats South Africa.
Well, that's good news to me, because I was wondering if any money goes back to Sunroll. That's actually our biggest issue, Alex. And then what happens to the money after that? That's our big problem. So I think the next conversation is to be with Sunroll, but obviously you don't contribute to Sunroll. Sunroll owns other roads, am I right?
No, just to explain it in terms of the implementation of the concession, the Mozambique government, they also have a similar body called A&E, and in South Africa it's Sunroll. So the N4 is a national road. The concession we have is then with A&E and Sunroll. So they remain the overall owner of that road reserve, and after the 50-year concession, it reverts back to Sunroll.
All right. Just one more question. The Machado Dorp one, why is that gate so expensive?
The toll plazas and the tariffs at the toll plazas is determined on a section that road represents. So you calculate, let's say it's a distance of 100 kilometers, and then the tariff is about 50 or 60 cents per kilometer, and then you get to a number. So on this particular route, the Machado Toll Plaza covers quite a long distance. And one wants to limit the number of toll gates, thereby limit the number of operational cost and the cost of collection. So that toll plaza is actually covering quite a long distance, all the way from just beyond Middelburg to Nelspruit. But in order to make it fair to the public, there are substantial discounts. So for local users, the tariff is 12 Rand. So it's only for the road user that's making use of the full route that tariff applies.
Okay, well, there we go. Listen, thanks for clearing this up. As I said yesterday, we need to get the facts. So it's important to me that we speak to guys like you who know the facts. So appreciate your time, Alex van Niekerk. Much appreciated. Thanks so much.
Thank you.